Welcome to the 613 Seconds podcast powered by the Jewish Life Network. Hi, I'm Aaron Friedman, your host, bringing you insightful, unscripted conversations with personalities connected to Baltimore's Jewish community, leaders, thinkers, and influencers who inspire and shape Jewish life. In just about 613 seconds, you'll gain wisdom, perspective, and connection because every second counts. Now, let's dive into this episode of 613 Seconds. Welcome to the 613 podcast powered by the Jewish Life Network. Today we have with us Rabbi Boruch Brull, the Executive Director of Ahavas Yisrael in Baltimore. Thank you for joining us, Rabbi Brull.
Rabbi Friedman, it is an honor to be here.
Thank you. So, a lot of people know you as a veteran of the community, a person who's been within the community for many, many years, but you're not from Baltimore originally.
Nope.
Where are you from?
From a place called Boro Park. You may be familiar with Boro Park. I went to yeshiva there. I went to yeshiva Tarvadas. I went to the Masifta of Long Beach afterwards, and then I wound up in a place called Lakewood, New Jersey, at the yeshiva there. I was a bacher for a couple of years. Mrs. Brull and I married, lived there for a couple of years, and while I was there, I became a Rebbe. In the Lakewood Cheder. Some of those famous people, the Aaron Schustels, the Aaron Shenkolevskis, the Aaron Olshins, they were all in my class. They were just many, many years ago. But when you were Rebbe in the Lakewood Cheder at that point, it really meant that nobody was settling in Lakewood. It's hard to believe, but nobody was settling there. And so really you were looking for another job. And that job came along in Baltimore. And so one of the milas of the job was my wife was originally from Baltimore too. And so I figured I'd be a Rebbe and be in Baltimore with my wife's family. And I had a double class. I had a class in the morning, class in the afternoon, so I paid a few extra dollars. So we came to a place called Baltimore.
And what year was that?
1978.
1978. And where did you become a Rebbe?
So I became a Rebbe in Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim, and it was a morning class and an afternoon class. And after, you didn't ask, but after a couple of months, I got the feeling that the city lacked a tzedakah fund where people can turn to. And there was a tzaddik in the city by the name of Rabbi Elozor Isbee. I went to his house, and I said, Elozor, you want a partner? You want to open up tzedakah in the city for people to turn to? There was a store back then, owned by a from person, and there was nothing in the store to buy. And so I said to myself, how's that person living? I figured after 120, they'll raise money for him. How's he making from day to day? So I partnered with Rabbi Elozor. About a year later, Eli Schlossberg came along. We went to Balabatim. We said, let's open up something. And we did. And this is 48 years later. It's all history. So but the history continues.
There's been a lot of amazing work that Ahavas Yisrael has done through the years, thanks to really the great idea that you had and the Chesed that together with Rabbi Elozor together with Eli Schlossberg and some of the greats within the community.
Right.
So Ahavas Yisrael is definitely known for being the hallmark of Chesed within the community. What are the most common ways that Ahavas Yisrael help people within the community?
So if I can take it a step back, and I want to tell you how proud I am of this, to be part of this community. I have a running joke with Rabbi Isbee. Always asks me, he says, okay, so Baruch, is it better in New York or is it better in Baltimore? It's his running line. And the answer is, this is an amazing city. I can. Some of you will come and tell me another such city. There's a tremendous achdus within the city. There's tremendous achdus within the Rabbanim. Each day I can speak to two, three of the Rabbanim, and it's like on a regular basis. There's a tremendous achdus with the organizations in town, something I can't believe that you see in another city. Even with the politicians in town, I had Yitzi Schleifer in my office a couple of weeks ago discussing how we can make things better, get people onto programs that they're eligible for. So it truly is, there's a tremendous achdus in the city, which I'm very proud to be a part of. And
back to my question.
Back to your question. No, but I wanted to make that, and I'm done with how proud I am to be here, how proud I am that a whole city works together. That's something very special. And your question was?
What is it that Ahavas Yisrael does most commonly to help people within the community?
So we started off small, and every year we grow, every day we grow to meet the needs of the community. Those needs can go from it's hard to imagine that we began with a couple of food boxes on a Thursday night and a couple of checks during Yom Tov and a couple of checks, during the year. At this point, we are pretty much everything. We have a wonderful relationship with dentists in town that will give us a break. We have a wonderful relationship with Mesila that can put people on the right path, and so there are 5 times a year that we send out. This morning, I apologize to Ravarin, I came a little bit late. We were sending out checks for Pesach, so I don't want to say anything untrue. 500 checks went out today to families. Not all of them went directly to them. Some went to their rabbanim. Some went in different directions to be able. The hardest part about Ahavas Yisrael is to be as discreet as possible, never to make anybody feel bad. Anytime we meet a family, the first line out of our mouths are, anything that we ask is to try and see how we can better help you. We don't mean to make anybody feel bad. It's something that's very important to us. So there are checks that go out during the year. There are certificates that go out to all the grocery stores, keeping the lights on in the city many times it's been when families come to our office and we've used the Ahavas Yisrael credit card to turn the lights back on. There are mortgage payments, there are foreclosures, there are all kinds of things that have come along. There are water bills that the families have. We have a wonderful relationship with the yeshivas. Some of the people struggle with tuitions. We can call up the yeshiva. Can we get a break? What can we do? And we have a mutual respect, and so we're really able to work with all the organizations, all the yeshivas across the board.
There's a tremendous amount of collaboration going on a day-to-day basis, just between different organizations, between the rabbanim and the community, just between probably the government as well, possibly, and it's really a tremendous undertaking.
Just to give you an idea, it comes Sukkot time. So we have somebody who has roofing fertilizer, who people give them old sukkahs. He buys new sukkahs. He has people build sukkahs. It's a chesed. Somebody needs a sukkah, somebody, whatever it is that time of year can use, that's something that we do. I'll tell you a nice story, so you should have a little bit of an understanding how we do things. Something, I was to write 2 books about people who did nice things. In one of the books that I wrote a story about Rabbi Haffer. I'll try and do this quickly. He had an Ahavas Yisrael meeting by our home. We had a number of the board members there. Every time we had a board meeting, we had a rav there because we said we were going to decide how to give out in the city, how not to give out in the city. We'd bring in a rav. This particular meeting, there was Rabbi Haffer was at this meeting. And Mrs. Brull, the one I hang out with at home, Mrs. Brull puts out an entire spread, when they come, because the meetings would go 2-3 hours. After hour number 1, everybody ate except for Rabbi Haffer. Hour number 2, everybody ate except for Rabbi Haffer. And I turned to Rabbi Haffer and I said, Rabbi, the food is kosher. I'm telling you, you don't have to really worry. I've had Rosh Hashivas in my house, the food is kosher. And he says, hour number 3 is done, and Rabbi Haffer hasn't put the thing in his mouth. And he says, Baruch, I'll tell you later. Everybody leaves. Rabbi Haffer doesn't leave. Comes into the kitchen, myself and my wife, and he says, I want to tell you something. He says, I wanted that there should be delicious food on the table, and I should look at it, and I shouldn't eat it. I should be hungry. I should be hungry when there's so much food out there. And he said, I felt that I can make a better decision on how to help the aniyim of the city. If I'm sitting at this table and I see all this food there and I'm not eating, I'll be able to make a better decision. So something that I took with me all the years, putting yourself in a person's place, having a better understanding. It was a lesson that Rabbi Haffer taught me at that time. But
That's unbelievable. It's special to have a city that's overseen by Rabbi Haffer together with Rabbi Heinemann. I think it really just makes Baltimore what it is. It's really special.
It really is. And again, Rabbi Haffer I spoke to Rabbi Eichenstein last night, and Rabbi Eichenstein called. He had a family in his office. How are we going to help that family? So it's there's such thing in Ahavas Yisrael. It's called putting out the fire. There's an issue that comes up, and then keeping the fire out. So it's different parts. This is the emergency that something comes up. What are we going to do? There's never a sick child. We have a relationship with Levinsons, the funeral home in town. If there's something that happens there, they will go out of the way for us. And we have a gemach, also Ahavas Yisrael has a gemach in town also, that people are able to access many thousands of dollars, and they're able to pay back over a certain amount of time, at no cost. It's like what there is in the town, we've grown to meet the needs because of the kindness of the people in the town.
So with Pesach coming up, what could people within the community do to help out, and why especially Pesach time?
It's an expensive yontif. It's gone through the roof. And for those people living in Baltimore, the electricity has gone through the roof. There are just many, many bills that have, and we've run a food program also in addition to regular packages that are there. There was a food program run in the city where many of our people were able to receive food for yontif. There's a fellow who buys all the matzahs that we give out. I won't mention his name because he won't be happy with me, who buys all the pounds of matzahs to give out. You know how many hundreds and hundreds of pounds of matzah this one guy, undertakes, to give out. I'll tell you one more story. I'll tell you a story that's special to me, touched myself and to my wife. My wife is very much a partner of Ahavas Yisrael too, in our, and so just to go a little bit further, you might come back to the story, but Baruch Brull ran Ahavas Yisrael together with Elozor Isbee for 40 years. After 40 years, the board looked at me and said, "This doesn't make any sense." I would go back one more step. I was Rebbe for 38 years, 2 years in the Lakewood Cheder, 36 years here. Every night when I finished Rebbeing, I would work in Ahavas Yisrael the rest of the night, Ahavas Yisrael. After 38 years total, after 36 years in Baltimore, the Rabbanim called me in, Rabbi Hafer and Rabbi Heinemann, and told me, "There's no more Rebbeing." I said, "Excuse me?" There's no more Rebbeing. I said, "What am I doing?" He said, "You're going to do Ahavas Yisrael full time. It's grown. It's something that the entire community needs. It's something that you have to do. You have to do it full time. You can't give part of your time." I said, "It's very nice, but I didn't get paid as, in Ahavas Yisrael, they haven't gotten paid. I don't get paid much as a Rebbe either, but at least there I got paid something." I said, "Nope, we're going to give you a salary. We want you to, do this full time." So I went from doing it after yeshiva to doing it full time. I did it at my dining room table all the years. At one point, the board said, it was a wonderful board also, and they've come up to their credit with many different ideas, and they've grown Ahavas Yisrael to truly meet the needs of the community. And so I now have an office. I have two people that are case managers that delve into each case to go ahead and figure it out. I have a person in the office who does nothing, but she does nothing but find people jobs. No, she does something. She finds people jobs. She does nothing but find people jobs. So there are people, there's another person, all the government programs that are out there. So we have somebody who works with them, making sure that they receive everything they're eligible for. So we've truly grown to meet the needs. I'll tell you a story that happened a few years ago, Pesach night, almost by the Seder. It was one of those years where we've sent out boxes and packages and checks and helped and spoken to Rabbanim. We speak to Rav a few times a year to see if anybody that we are missing. And sure enough, it's finally Pesach time. It was, I'm there with my wife and children. We're going to sit down by the Seder, and I feel pretty good about myself because this is many, many hours, and I think that we did a wonderful job. We got the city covered, and there's a knock at the door. And there's a knock at the door right before we sit down at the Pesach Seder. And I open up the door, and the guy called me Yaakov. Yaakov's knocking at the door. I said, "Yaakov, what are you doing here? Why aren't you going to your Seder?" And he says, "I'm missing all the simanim." I said, "But I sent you a check." He said, "Yeah, but my wife didn't buy any of the simanim. We have no simanim for the table." So Mrs. Brull took off from everything that we had, and she set aside for him, and she handed it to him, and he walked out of our house with a bag of, all the different simanim to use by the Seder. And I said to myself, there was that one last guy that Ahavas Yisrael hadn't helped this year, and he came to my door right before the Seder, and we gave him whatever he needed, and he walked out, and I told my children, now we can sit down and have a real Seder. That last guy, was helped. So I'm so grateful to be a part of a community that says to me, we're here for you. We're here for our community. We're here to help each other out.
That's really unbelievable. And Baltimore is really lucky to have you, and Baltimore is lucky to have Ahavas Yisrael. You should have many years of strength to be able to continue in your more important mission together with your wonderful Eishes Chayil.
Thank you, Rav Aaron. I learn with Rav Aaron's father every summer already for many, many years. It's a schus to learn with Aaron's father.
And I grew up together with Rabbi Brull and Rabbi
true.
Taubschul, same table, so I could attest to the greatness.
Not just that, but Aaron, who's such a nice guy, wrote a little article somewhere, which I have. It's the only thing I have hanging in my Ahavas Yisrael office. He writes when he was growing up that he sat by the table and he sat with all the wonderful people in Rabbi Taubschul, and he said, "I learned from them all." It was something special that he wrote, and I have that little blurb hanging in my office.
Thank you, and I'm honored.
We're all honored.
Have a good Yontif.
A good Yontif.
Thanks for joining us today.
A good Yontif to all. A gezinti Yontif, a mazeldik Yontif, a kosherdik Yontif, which I'm sure it is. And Be'ezras Hashem, we should continue to be able to help Klal Yisrael.
Amen.